Hello, this is Christian. In this video, we'll be focusing on the PHP syntax. So for the objective for this video is going to be the following topics. We'll take a look at how to naming your PHP files, how to use the PHP tags to run your script, what constitutes a PHP statement, how to write comments in PHP, and how to deal with white spaces in PHP. So let's go and take a look. Okay, so here in the IDE, I'm using WebStorm. If you're using different IDEs, it might be different, but that is not besides the point. So I'm going to go into the module 1 here and create another file. As you can see, this is an example of a PHP file. Okay, so all your PHP files must contain the extension .php, and they must only be plain text files. Okay, it cannot be binary files, otherwise it won't execute right. So the older versions of PHP may allow you to use like a different extension like .php4 or PHP3, and you can use these names, but you will have to like configure the web server to understand those. And that was a lot of headaches to do that because it's it's a server base. If you were to load these files on a different server, then that server needs to be configured all the time. So it's not really helpful. So in that case, it's been completely moved out of PHP 7. So right now in PHP 7, all your files must be only in the .php extension. That includes both files that you can include into other PHP files, which we will do much later in the course. But it's always safe to make or to save all your files in PHP with a .php in order to hide any sensitive code or PHP code so that they won't be rendered on the browser. Okay, so this is one of them. In this studio, I'm just going to basically right click on this folder. So just make sure where your cursor or which directory you're selected in order to create files. If you put out here, then your file exists in that directory. So I want to make sure it's inside the module folder, or just to be safe, you can go right in here. It doesn't really matter. And then just do a right click here and click new, and you have these options here. So as you can see, PHP Storm has all these pre-configured for you. So you just basically pick and choose, right? So we're just going to do a PHP file, and if you click on that one, it's going to ask you to give it a file name. The extension, as you can see, is already pre-selected for you. You can change it to a different one. As you can see, again, this is an old version, so please do not use those. And then just type in your name. In this example, I'll use just the name syntax just to make sure that's what we're using. And you don't have to put .php. If you do that, that's fine. If you don't, then it will be added for you automatically. Okay, so just click OK here. So here we are. We have the PHP here and the IDE open up for you. And if you don't need this, you just remove all these here, and that's good. Okay, so again, just make sure all in that format. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is the PHP tags. Okay, what constitutes a PHP tag, I guess. In the older version, in my other slides video, you see that there's like a couple of them to declare PHP scripts. So in PHP 7, this is the only legal tags that you can use for PHP script. You must start with this. Let me make it really big so you can see. With this angle bracket, the question mark, followed by the word or the PHP phrase. Okay, you cannot put spaces in here. If you do that, it's gonna work. Not gonna work. Okay, just no white space in between, and then you can. And usually you close it with a matching pair like that. Okay, so this is a PHP script. When we refer to a PHP script, this is what it will look like. Now, okay, so as you can see, I have a little gray squiggly line here. If I mouse over that, it tells you redundant closing tag. Okay, and if you click more, it tells you that closing tag is redundant for files containing only PHP code. So that's one thing about PHP here. Okay, if your code inside PHP here contains only PHP code, no other things, then this closing tag is completely optional. And ideally, you should actually leave it out. Okay, but you'll see that it's very common to just put that there anyways. Okay, so it's not wrong. It's just that it's recommended to leave it out if you have only PHP code. And the reason why is because I can go in and out of different mode like this later on. I'll show you. All right, so this is the only valid tag you will use for writing PHP scripts. Now the other one is what's called an expression. I put it here. The expression will look something like this: angle bracket equal with the equal sign. Question with the equal sign. And in here you put your, and you close with a matching piece as well. Inside here you should put your expression. This is only for expression. Expression is something that you can, perform an operation on. Usually, like, mathematical calculations, printing something out to the console or to the screen, things like that, right? You can't do something like a equals 2. Okay, this is if you do that, I'm not sure it's gonna what it show you, but basically this is an assignment. So if I were to run this, it may have an error. But usually when you print something out to the screen, so when you like echo something, well, not echo, of course, in this case, yeah, you can, but usually something you can output to the screen, like 2 plus 2, like those, right? So 2 plus 2 is an expression, okay? Or a function to print something, then you put that here. So these the only two tags that we use in PHP 7. Okay, and we'll learn more about this later on. This is very handy. You cannot put this inside here, not in that context. Okay, so usually by itself inside a PHP an HTML document. Okay, so this is the PHP tag, and what it will do is that when the parser comes along, and it sees this tag here. When it sees this tag, so it's a marker to tell the parser, and then parser would say, hey, inside here, from here on, it's going to be a PHP code, and then it will tell the PHP interpreter to come and interpret whatever code is in here until it reaches the end of this marker here. Then that's the end of that PHP script, and then interpretation stops right there. And so you have these concept of going in and out of the mode here. So I'm showing you two copies of the script here. So I have two pieces of scripts here, and you can put documents outside here. Anything outside of these tags are HTML content. So I could put like H1 out here, hello, right? PHP. This is HTML. You are in HTML mode. Once the parser sees this tag, it's going to go into PHP mode. Outside again, we're back to HTML mode, and back in again. So you can see you can put scripts in between the other ones, and we'll talk about more about this later, but this is what it means by we embedding PHP scripts inside HTML. Or I would say, maybe it's more correct to say that we're embedding HTML inside PHP, I guess. Because after all, this is a PHP document. Okay, so that means these are scripts. The expression is you put inside, like outside of the PHP mode, but you want to output something directly to the browser, right, or to the view, then you use expression. So for example, if I want to print the word PHP here, not using the hard-coded text here, I could use the expression to do something like this. I can do that, and I put the word echo and then hello. PHP, right? PHP. No, not echo. That's incorrect. It cannot be echo. It has to say just PHP. And that will print that statement there to the browser. Okay, all it does is just basically put a statement there, and that is an expression. So you can see I'm in, HTML mode. It sees this. The parser said this is an expression. Therefore, process this expression and display it. Okay, and then end of the expression, back to HTML mode, and then now this is the script mode. Okay, so if you were to save that and run it, you will see that that should be what's on the browser, and so on. So, for example, if I run it and let's see what this one would do. Basically, you click that icon here, and you see the message, "Hello PHP." Okay, so if you can see, this expression was evaluated and printed out, and if you do a source view, you will see that in the source you would not see the PHP code. Okay, you don't see that angle bracket there at all, nor do you see any other PHP tags here, but just whatever you see in line 1 plus the content inside the expression here, and then the closing tag over here. So this is what you want to show to the user, to the browser. In the source view, and this is what you should see on the view on the browser. Okay, so that is the two tags you use in PHP. So the next one is I guess the comments, right? No, the statements. Okay, so what is a PHP statement? And that is pretty easy. Okay, PHP statements is any statement you write inside here. Okay, and I'm gonna close this piece and this piece so we don't have too many things going on there. So a PHP statement is any legal statement that ends with a semicolon. You must end a PHP statement with a semicolon, otherwise it will be rendered as a syntax error. So for example, if you want to print another message to the screen, you could use the echo construct. The echo here will print or will echo a message to the screen, to the browser. So if I do like hello, if I do the same message or something like that, I can say hello PHP. I'll put here something a little different so we can see. But I'm going to wrap this with the H1 as we do an H2 here. So you can see that everything is inside the double quotes here, and that is what's called a string. Okay, you put strings inside a double quote or single quote, either one. And there's some a subtle difference between the two. We'll do that later as well. But I want to show you that this is a statement that will print this to the browser, very much similar to as if you were outside in the HTML mode. Okay, so you can see here my ID tells me, had this little red squiggly line tells me that it's not a complete statement. It's expecting a semicolon. So as you can see, this tool is really helpful to tell you to put a semicolon there. So now that is a PHP statement. Okay, you have a construct to print something to the console or to the browser in both situations. Here I can use that one here, or I can use the print statement. Either one will do the same thing pretty much. Again, there's a subtle difference between the two, but we'll deal with that later. Okay, so if I go back to echo, this is a more common one. If I save it, if I go back to my browser I showed you earlier, and if I were to run it, refresh it, you see there has a second statement here. Okay, again, if I click on the view source code, refresh that, you see only the H2 tags. You don't see the echo statements, nor do you see the semicolon here, right? So, so both of these, so this is how you would see it. This is a valid PHP statement. Very simple like that, okay? So anything with a semicolon will end that statement. All right, so the next thing is writing comments. A comment is basically it's just a note you want to put to yourself or to other developers inside your script. Now, as you can see, I'm inside the PHP script here. I'm not in the HTML. If you put outside there, it won't work. So inside PHP. Now, PHP has three ways to write comments. And one of the common ones, or I guess the most common ones, is the // This is used for commenting a single line, or I guess it's called a single line comment. That means you can put a message here and it will be ignored by the interpreter, right? So when the parser sees this pair of double // then it will just ignore that piece or say, hey, PHP interpreter, forget about this line, just skip it, move on to the next one. Okay, so here you put a message to yourself, and for example, it would say print the word or the phrase, right? Hello PHP to browser, something like that, just to, you know, it's a note to yourself or other developers, and so they can see that. Okay, again, it must be inside the PHP script here. You cannot put this inside the expression like in here. Okay, it won't let you do it. It has to be inside here only, and you cannot put outside here either. This is in the HTML mode. If you do this, it's just going to be rendered as a plain character. You'll see that on the browser. I'll show you here. Outside comment, okay, doesn't work. Okay, so if I save this and render on the browser again over here, and if I refresh, let me close this for now so we have more spaces. Okay. So here, if I go ahead and just, you know, resize this, we don't need the whole space here. If I refresh this, you see that this is, you know, it's rendered because it's not inside a PHP script. So that one doesn't work. It's just regular HTML content. And if you do in the source view, refresh that, you see that again, this is exactly what you see because it's part of the HTML. And notice you don't see this comment here at all. It's not rendered to the browser. Okay, so it's hidden in the PHP script only. It's only available inside here, so you can see it, and other developers can see as well. This is one way for a single line comment. If you were to, let's just say, split this into another line, then now it's again, this IDE helps me to do it automatically, but usually if you do something like this, it's no longer valid because the line numbers now changes from 7 to 8. And because I did a carriage return, right? So it doesn't work that way. But if your strip is really long like this, and if it wraps to the next line, it doesn't matter. You'll see that it looks like it had 3 lines, but really it's still line number 7. Okay, so in that case, it's still going to be fine. It's just still a single line. Okay, so if you want to, to the browser, if you want to do a multi-line again, you just have to go and then go here, and then you break that, and you can do multi-line like I did earlier. So it would say something like that. Okay, this is 2 lines. I keep using that every time I want to do a single line. Okay, the other option is to use the pound sign. Okay, this is used in Python. Python uses as a single line comment. You can use it in PHP as well if you want to. So either the / or the pound sign, and they're both for single line comment. Again, just to make sure if I can save that and view my browser again, refresh it, you should not see that in the code, nor do you see inside here as well. Okay, so those two are fine. It's just a matter of preference, how you want to use it, right? Some people like it, some don't. I don't know. It doesn't have to be on its own line. Okay, you can also put it inside here. Let's say this. Usually, it's kind of common to put a comment after the end of a statement, if there's enough space to do it. So let's just say I can put that here and say you can use a / or again the pound sign doesn't matter. You can say print to window, to browser, right? Something like that. Again, it would not be rendered to the browser. So it only counts after this symbol here. Okay, so anything before that would be treated as a script. So be very careful with this. If you happen to, let's just say, you put it somewhere else in between, it will have a problem. Okay, so what I mean is that, well, I could do one more thing. So if I say hello PHP, and then because I can combine strings together, so usually you do some hello like that, and then you put, you close that here, and then you use the dot to concatenate, and you start again. Okay, this is called concatenator. This is a dot to combine 2 strings. This is one string here, a second string together to form a single string. Okay, so the result will still be the same. Now in other languages like Java and JavaScript and so on, they'll use a plus sign instead of a dot. Okay, so you can't use that in here, not for this purpose. A plus will always be used as a mathematical operation in PHP. So to concatenate, you just have to use the dot notation. And so this one here, again, I just put another few here so we can see that this actually should still work just fine. My source code, you can see, no changes besides the 2 extra exclamation points. Here the use on the view, just added 2 more so you can see that's fine. Okay, the comments are not shown. So when I said be careful, because usually this will put at the end of a statement. If you happen to like copy and paste it, put it in here in the statement, this is in the statement block here. If you do that, you see that's an error because this is now the end of that statement. It's a comment. So this code here is now ignored by the parser. Right, so now you have a syntax error because now this is not a valid statement. Okay, to make it valid, you have to put a semicolon. Okay, if you do that, it's still an error because it's expecting to concatenate something here, so you have a problem. You can do something like this, and that's fine because you now have a white space. But you're back to where you were before, right? So be careful when you do that. And again, it's not common to put the comment inside the same line here. It usually goes at the end of that block. Now the last one is you use multi-line. So notice here again, I'm using 2 lines. So in every line you have to put the symbols in front. So if you don't want to do that, you use a single, you use the multi-line, and that's by doing something like this. say the /star, okay, and you see that if I keep typing, my IDE shows me all these stars here. But this is again just for for design purposes. You don't have to put that there. But the required is just the star / to close that / here. So this one has to be, again, no space in between. Okay, it has to be just together like that. Opening tag, closing tag for multi-line. So you can see I can put all your comments in here. Multi-line comments. Okay. Whatever it is, right? So you can put whatever you need to put here. All these are being ignored by the browser. So this way, this is again same as Java and C++. Okay, so all these will be ignored, and you don't have to do this every time. So very handy if you have multi-line in this case. But again, be careful. You cannot nest a multi-line inside a multi-line. So if I do this, I start another one here and something, and then I close that. Okay, I have an error. Okay, because once I start, then if I start again, this will be just treated as a text. It's not going to be treated as another comment, but it will find the matching closing part to close that. So now legally, this is the end of this block. And now this is a completely invalid statement, and you have a incomplete statement here as well. So you have an error. So be careful when you do that. Okay. So it should be just you should not put nested comments inside another one. It doesn't make sense that way. All right, and the last one is about white spaces. So that means when you write your scripts, as you can see, there's a white space here. You notice that, right? This is completely optional. You don't have to put any white spaces here, nor do you need it here, right? All these are optional. It's just that this is a completely valid PHP statement. It's really hard to see. As you can see, it's hard to see. This is different. This white space is for HTML. But again, HTML, you only need one space. I can put like all these white spaces. It doesn't matter. This is HTML. This is inside script. So if I, put something here, put like another, just to show us, okay, it will just still look the same. This shouldn't be any difference except with that @ symbol. You see it in my script. You see the space are added inside the PHP, inside the HTML. So these are like they're preserved. Okay, and the code, they're preserved, but on the browser doesn't care. So the web browser has its own way of managing white spaces. There's only one space for HTML. But in the source code, the actual code, you see the white spaces, and you may wonder why this is so. Okay, and this is because it's preserved in text. So if you want to, copy the text out to a document like text file to use it, then these white spaces are preserved. But that's HTML part. Okay, so the script part, as you can see, I could put white space or none. It doesn't matter. Okay, as long as it's valid PHP statement. Okay, I can put it here. I can put after the semicolon, put in white spaces. I can even put a multi-line like this. It doesn't matter. Okay, it should still be fine. If I save this, and let's just say let's remove that back again to a different symbol, so we know, if I save that and I go back to the browser and run it again, you see that it should still just be fine. There's no distinction there. Again, here's nothing wrong here, right? So be very careful. The white spaces are put there so it's easier for us to read. It's just for readability purposes most of the time, right? So you don't really care about that white space. And again, some languages will not let you do that, especially JavaScript, right? You can't do this. I'm not saying about white spaces. I'm talking about like multi-line like this. You can't write multi-line script like this in JavaScript, and it's still being treated as the same line. Maybe not true, not all the case, but when you write a single line of strings, I meant to say. But anyways, so you can see that this is completely okay. Okay, as long as it finds the semicolon to close it, then that is a PHP statement. So white spaces are completely ignored in PHP, but not recommended because, as you can see, it's really hard to read, right? So so just make sure there's a white space between where they're supposed to be for readability purposes, and I'm just showing you how this is done. It's not recommended how this should be done in PHP. Okay, so don't confuse yourself and don't confuse other programmers.